Haven't actually made a video for a while, a few days really, and I've actually got an important one to do with that independent review that they're doing for the legal system. Leaveson's doing it. I want to do it, and it's all going to be recorded on voice because I ain't got time to write it all down. I just need to put spoken views. The justice system is suffering from very similar problems to this government. Here, right, this is what the Senedd are going on about. And just look at that room there in the Senedd with all those chairs in a circle. Who do they think they are? The only thing that is outdated now is politicians. We don't need to send anyone to London to represent us in a local area now with all this technology and communication. We did do when there was no radio, no TV, and increasingly since at least the 1600s onwards, we've needed MPs less and less and less and less, but yet they've got more and more and more control of their political parties. And people always fight back, the suffragettes and so forth, but it's pointless. What's the point in women fighting so strongly for the vote when by the time they get the vote, only just half to 2/3 of the country bother voting, right? And then out of the people who do vote, they only vote for two different parties. So it doesn't matter if you've got 10 people voting, five apiece, 5 for one party and 5 for the other party, or 10,000 people voting, or 10 million people voting. They're only voting for two different parties. So what is the point? It's pointless. Now, if there were loads of independent candidates, then fair enough. And Starmer, when Starmer says to his Labour Party members, "Oh, you'll never stand for this party again," like as if they're not going to be able to get elected if they don't stand for Labour. Starmer couldn't get elected if he didn't stand for Labour. He's only getting elected. Even he's admitting, right, that no one can stand for government without being for one of these main parties. Why is that? I'd like to ask Starmer, right? If he's so brilliant, why don't you just? I'm sick of Starmer, right? People are going to vote for me like Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn actually stands for Corbyn now himself, and his voters in Islington vote for him, right? Anyone who can only get voted because they're wearing a certain football shirt or flying a certain flag or on a certain team, they're actually voting for the team, not for the person. And this is a problem with Labour and all these dedicated Labour voters. They actually are just voting for the party, almost like a football team. There's no honour or glamour or victory in just, it's all right, if you stand for Labour, you're going to get elected, right? Even though, apparently David Cameron told Andrew Bridgen he'd never win the seat in Leicestershire. He wasn't going to give him any money. He did actually end up getting elected. But, Starmer, I like to see Starmer get elected now, even for Labour, let alone, just for himself. If Starmer was like Corbyn, right, Starmer would not get elected in his area if he didn't actually stand for Labour. So it's Labour that's getting elected, not the person. And that's the problem. You want to elect the person, not the party. Because then you don't really know you're electing or why you're electing them personally. You're wanting someone who personally will communicate and help their electorate. Not who's just there to stamp for some kind of colour or name or slogan or whatever. And that's a problem with Starmer. And Starmer himself is a complete failure. He's always going on about respect. You get respect when you tell the truth. You get respect when you do things properly. Starmer is there because he led the Crown Prosecution Service and he was a barrister before. Keir Starmer represented people in political actions. He did not either know about or properly represent them for their privileges when that's the law. So he either wasn't trained properly, he was clueless, and he hasn't done it properly. No matter how many cases he's won, he hasn't done it properly. And it doesn't matter how many Privy Council cases he's been in front of and how many pound notice he's earned. There are lawyers all over this country earning, millions, right? There are lawyers all over this country working for law firms earning millions and doing, £100,000 cases. It's not rare. And if you happen to get this case or that case or a case for the police here or there and you get strings pulled for you, right? Starmer there are hundreds of King's Counsel lawyers in this country, right? Thousands, right? Why Starmer any particular than any other one? He did certain cases which managed to land him a job in the Crown Prosecution Service, right? After he hadn't done his job properly with protesters. And then this Crown Prosecution Service, by the way, was only formed in 1985, right? As soon as the Crown Prosecution Service is formed, it works out that, these tumultuous petitioning act proceedings in the courts, they're not such a good idea because, if we end up getting any of these prosecutors, we'll get prosecuted because it's illegal, right? We can't have that act. Scrap that act. And then, people will forget about it, right? They purposely scrapped the act so they didn't have to provide the acknowledgement proceedings, so then they didn't have to acknowledge it, and then it doesn't have to get enforced. And then you can't turn the prosecution around against the prosecutors because no one's even using that right anymore and they've forgotten about it when it actually applies, right? Particularly large groups of people. So for their own protection and self-preservation, contrary to the freedoms and liberties of the realm, which have been subverted illegally, which is evil in the law, right? Starmer's even leading the CPS, championing them. We're doing a great job here, fighting crime. But, the police aren't exactly lowering crime now, are they, right? Firemen do a good job. Loads of people do a good job. It's that particular right. It's a very important right, and it's a very important law because it's in the Constitution. It's one of the main important laws of the Constitution, which was it was a big event that after the preceding events which led up to it, right? And it's been completely and totally undermined, which actually is treason. It is treason and perjury of oath. There's no doubt about it. And now Starmer's got into politics, and now he's the Prime Minister of England, right? So as far as I'm concerned, Starmer is delusional if he thinks that he's not on the stage now with a big sign hung around his neck saying, Exhibit 1, Starmer, a corrupt Crown prosecutor and failed lawyer who did not protect people's rights and liberties because he didn't have a clue what he was doing. On exhibit now, avoiding questions, doing what Crown prosecutors do, sneak, connive, swindle, hide. That in fact, it's worse than the criminals they're prosecuting because they're meant to have this honour, right? Yeah, we're doing a good job, we're getting criminals, respect, bollocks. There is no respect for Starmer. None. He cannot command respect because he is undermining the rights and liberties of the realm. And he has done through the CPS. No, it never crossed my desk, Well, what are you writing with your left hand? What are you writing with your pen? We're writing I'm writing pardons out all day for criminals, who are, getting assisting offenders, how does that work? What's that based on, right? Starmer is obsessed with respect. It's an obsession. It's all he ever talks about when he's coming out with his, respect order. There is no respect. He is a criminal. It doesn't matter whether he's going to make the king look bad, the crown look bad, the country look bad, or by God, thunder and lightning crackle from the heavens above. Starmer is a criminal. And in government now, it's a breach of privileges. We've got professional barristers of England, practicing barristers, are on YouTube cringing, covering their eyes. When they watch Starmer in Parliament, right, they're humiliated. They cannot believe what they are seeing and hearing occur in front of them. This man is dodging questions. And this is what it comes down to, this whole free speech in Parliament, right? It's got to a point where these people are so, they're elected. They're meant to represent everyone. It's all being filmed. It's all on television. It's all scripted. It cannot not go off script, like what Dominic Cummings said, that one thing said, right? One thing said which can prove or even raise awareness that these people are doing something wrong now, have done something wrong, the whole deck of cards falls, and he can't have it said in Parliament. We can't even have petitions put in which are strong, right? And this is how he's defending himself, by obstructing our claims and by not answering questions. Because it's got to a point now where if one of them makes a mistake, the whole Labour Party is going to they'll never vote for him, right? So he's so corrupt that he cannot have one truth, which is worth telling, right? And all these other truths, it's Lord Anningfield, he scammed his expenses, Porky Lord Anningfield, right? Yeah, if a Labour Party member has done something wrong, right, which is quite fickle, and it only affects that person, he took someone up, then they can use them as a Jimmy Savile example, right? Like this Lord who's been done for fiddling, right? They can't have it done to Khan now because their entire plan and strategy rests on Khan. He's a champion, right? If Khan headbutted someone in the street, they'd find a way to make an excuse that, he did it for there's nothing wrong, right? Because he's running the entire ULEZ scheme. He's running the entire C40 cities scheme. He's running the entire thing, Khan. He's the main man. He can't do anything wrong. Yet the entire ULEZ scheme in London is illegal to the liberties of London. And this is the thing with Starmer. When you've done so much criminal activity and your whole party and its legacy and your entire career is criminal, you cannot allow it to be heard or even acknowledged by the public. It's like walking down the street and just looking at someone and them saying, excuse me, we don't know what time it is, and just blanking them, right? Starmer actually has to pretend it does not exist because his entire life and party will actually cease to exist if he even acknowledges that truth. And now that they're going on about here saying that, how can we stop politicians lying? But we don't need to stop them lying. And this is the thing, what this is going on about here, right? You're saying, we need to make a law up to stop politicians lying. No, they don't. Because not everyone is right. It's human. And that's what a debate is. A debate is the right to challenge someone when they're wrong. These people don't even want people to be wrong. You can't be right all the time. It's a debate. And then they're going on about, it's complicated, it's complicated. These people don't know what complicated is. This Gareth Price guy, they're not intelligent, these people who are getting elected into Parliament. They aren't complicated thinkers and they're not intelligent. And this is why they don't even get it. They don't even understand the law. And they don't even understand complicated things when you put petitions in. I don't understand what you're saying. Yeah, because you're the one who's not up to standards. They aren't intelligent. And they're not intelligent enough even to know that. Why did they make it in Parliament so there was free speech there from the start? Because you can't argue something if you can't speak freely. And if every single person was right, then they'd all immediately agree on absolutely every single thing that was on the table. right? Because, and this is the thing, what they're doing now is, it's not about whether they're right or wrong. It's about us being able to say when they're wrong. And they don't want us to be able to say that they're wrong and have it on the petitions website that, oh, I think this is wrong and I want it sorted out. They can't have it on there because they won't acknowledge it. They don't want to be proved wrong. And it's not about being right or wrong. It's about being able to challenge when someone's right or wrong. And if someone who is right is silenced by the people who are wrong, that's wrong. Because you can't correct it. And if these people in Parliament really are right, and you're calling them out on it and you're not right, then let them speak. But if you can't be heard, then you can't challenge it. These people are allergic to a fair debate. They cannot handle it because they actually cannot stand being proved wrong. Yet they're trying to claim that they want to make being wrong illegal. But how do you find out that they're wrong in order to establish that? By debating it. And they don't want us to be able to debate it. And we don't even need them anymore. We don't need politicians in there. They're a waste of time and money. Because we can debate things and decide and vote now with technology. And we need to actually get rid of them and just have people in there who literally file documents and add all the numbers up. We need accountants in Parliament now because we're actually past these politicians because they're taking over the place and these stupid political parties and they're not doing what the actual real people want when the people are bothered about things. And, you know, Donald Trump, I don't know why they're talking about all this. Why are they talking about all this? Oh, it's complicated and freedom of speech and stopping lies. Donald Trump is now president, right? All of these platforms are American, the most of them. He's scrapping all this censorship. And Ed Davey from Liberal Democrats, he's having a seizure, right? These people cannot handle the fact that they've lost, and all these platforms are going to be free speech. So I don't know why they're even talking about it anymore. They can't even get it right. When you go to Parliament, you're meant to have access to documents, the whole library, books and so forth, and be in a responsible position. And you've got staff, and you form a team and have an office, right? The ancient Parliament, supposedly according to William Prim, was meant to be that if you cannot be there, like, you know, Matt Hancock away, then you can nominate someone to go represent you in your place. So then the local people have got someone to represent them. That got chucked away, didn't it? And now no one turns up to vote in the House and Chamber, hardly. What are these people doing? Someone had to call a general election petition. What is a general election? It's like everyone's seats get decided again, right? Why? Oh, because people aren't happy with their MPs. In fact, specifically, because they're saying that they didn't do what they said they were going to do in order to get elected, you know, standing for Labour. So that's an election petition issue. It's meant to be debated in committees in Parliament. It's not difficult to understand or know that. Parliament staff should know that. They should know the history of Parliament. Anyone who's interested in politics or has studied politics, Boris Johnson is meant to have done politics at Oxford, David Cameron, they should know that. MP seats were debated in Parliament because it is Parliament debate their own matters. It's not for any place out of Parliament to decide matters of Parliament, right? So nowhere could. But because they were corrupt and not trusted, in 1868, they made it so courts may hear election petitions. And why is it called an election petition? Because it was usually a petition to Parliament, right? Courts may hear them, whereas before they may not. And it's a lot easier because then, if a local MP, if his local electorate think that there was some cheating on, they go to court, right? And they used to have it in the town hall. And it's a lot easier for the people in the local area to do it, right? But it's not, it doesn't have to be there. It was just a lot easier. And then you get all these special proceedings. And those type of proceedings are important because it's matters to do with Parliament and elections. You've got all these indemnity certificates and things like that, which acknowledge privileges and immunities and so forth, which come into play. Not everyone gets them, but because it's matters to do with Parliament, like petitions to the House of Commons over anything, right? So they should have known that. And in this debate, which has got 3 million signatures supporting it from Michael Westwood, Jamie Stone, he's going, no, Parliament can't decide on this matter. No, Parliament can decide and debate on the seats of its members, whether it's one member or all of them. The Prime Minister is able to call a general election, and so is the King, but not only them. They have the power to do it as opposed to not having the power to do it, right? Parliament's always got the privilege of debating its own affairs, right? So why should we have to do, and in particular, there's so many signatures that, there's enough, really, to justify election petitions all over the country. But, they're going to also cost money. But that was even before we had the Crown Prosecution Service as well. They're going to do it. But a lot of the Crown Prosecution Service are Labour, right? And it's almost kind of like, can you imagine if the Crown Prosecution Service went and prosecuted Starmer? It would be like, oh, you'll never stand for Labour again. All right, so these Crown prosecutors actually standing for Labour, right? So, well, they are. They are. A lot of Crown prosecutors are Labour supporters, because they're not on that much money, unlike, Tories who are usually private barristers. So, it's almost like, if someone doesn't vote Starmer's away in the chamber, it's like one of the Crown prosecutors, arrests Starmer or brings charges against him, and he'll never stand for, he'll be out of the party, won't he? Right? And this is how the whole thing's corrupt now. The whole thing. The Crown Prosecution Service is a very important part of it since 1985 when it was formed, because from the start, politically corrupt, because because the prosecutor does not want to become the prosecuted, and they got rid of that act very early because the courts were, prior to that, recognising these actions and processes which are very important and protected. And if you got those, then, you could do political things. Unfortunately, a lot of Crown prosecutors aren't necessarily on that much money compared to other barristers, and they're all members of the Labour Party. They're all, the Crown Prosecution Service is primarily Labour Party. They're not going to prosecute their leader, are they, Keir Starmer? So, we've got issues. But as for freedom of speech, you need to be... There are a lot of people on Facebook pages now who I know are wrong and putting out misinformation and misleading people, but only mainly because they don't know. And it's hard to speak to them because everyone now has got a channel and wants to talk, but they don't have the time to go through all their comments or to reply anyone with any focus or attention, and it's difficult to contact them. A lot of them don't reply, and no one wants to have anyone on their channel or do Zoom or ring anyone up unless it's going to benefit their channel, right? If someone else has got a big channel with, a million viewers, then they want to have you on because, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Oh, your channel's got 20 million viewers. If I have you on my show, they might watch it and I'll get some more. It'll help me out, right? But they don't want to have someone who's just no one. This is social points in effect, right? There are people who actually can help and who know the truth, and they just want to speak to the person, right, and help them learn so they understand it, and then they can tell people, but unless they want to go on the show and speak to them, they don't want to do it because it's not worth the time because they ain't got video out of it, and they just don't want to speak to people hardly on the phone. So, it's all about social points now and what people can do for each other and how they can make them more famous or powerful or whatever for their own benefit, not only for everyone else. I'm not saying that they only do it for themselves, because obviously they've got some kind of cause they're standing for. They're trying to help out some sort of movement or cause. But this is Starmer. It's all about being a star now, and it's all about celebrityism. And this is the whole thing to do with the House of Lords as well, right? Because, we've got this Harriet Harman woman, Baroness Harman or whatever, going on about, why should the Lord Spiritual have to have a place in Parliament? Well, they should, because in law, it is the Lord Spiritual and Lord Temporal, so you've got to have them, because, it exists, Lord Spiritual and Lord Temporal. You can't not have Lord Spiritual, because it's in, Magna Carta and the Charter of the Forest and confirmation of the Charters and the Ancient Rights and Liberties, so you can't not have Lord Spiritual. How do they have a more automatic right to sit there? Because they're a bishop. That is what a Lord Spiritual is. Oh, why do you have to have an automatic right to sit in the Lords? Well, how many bishops have you got? It's the bishop because I'm the bishop. Some of these women are a tragedy, right? They belong on Loose Women. They belong on morning TV with Jeremy Vine. They don't belong in the House of Lords or Parliament, some of these women. Priti Patel, Harriet Harman. They're not fit to do the job. They're not intelligent enough, even though she's a King's Counsel. Jeremy Johnson KC was a King's Counsel, but he didn't work out that Lord Hanningfield supposedly has still got his life peer privileges because he can't be repealed. And they're opening Parliament with them all every day, of the week. So, they're wanting to influence. It's like having Loose Women in Parliament or, baking a cake. They're approaching the law. Harriet Harman, right, is approaching the Parliament and the law. I don't care what degree in law she's got or King's Counsel, right? She's going into Parliament as if it's morning TV and cooking up baking a cake, right? Oh, look, we'll do this law and we'll put an extra bit of flour in and we'll try 3 eggs instead of 2 eggs, right? She ain't got a clue what she's doing. Try reading actual law of England. Try reading the actual formation of Parliament. What even is it that it is, right? It is the king summoning the bishops for a meeting. Parley. Why? Because when he got into the country, right, there's something already there, which is the spiritual leaders of the country, which at that point was all Christian. Right? The leaders of people, the spiritual leaders of people and the landowners. Right? And the landowners were only summoned to great councils at first. And then they started having them both in Parliament, Lord Spiritual and Temporal, who actually were only referred to as knights at first, the barons, until they changed it to baron. We're still only knight chevaliers, right? The church decides who's in charge of the church because it's its own organisation. And the bishops are the leaders of the church, right? That's who are being summoned, the leaders of the church. How do you automatically get a right to sit in the Lords? Because you are the leader of the church, right? Who else? Who else in the church? We show on the abbots there. Well, let's have more abbots then in there, because that's what it's meant to be. It's meant to be like 80 or 90% Lord Spiritual and then 10% Lord Temporal. Now it's like there's hardly any Lord Spiritual in there because they've all been pushed out. And at the end of the day, the church, the religion, is treated like a political party of its own now, an extremely minority one, even smaller minority than the Green Party, right? It's not popular. They don't like it, right? And what's taken over is the new replacement of the spiritual leaders, which is television, right? Television presenters, television shows. They are now guiding the country. Jeremy Vine. You might as well have Jeremy Vine have an automatic right to sit in the House of Lords because he leads people. He leads the nation on a morning. Jeremy Vine is like the spiritual leader of the country because he's got all the hearts and minds of the people. He's got the congregation. So you might as well just, for what Harriet Harman cares, you might as well have Jeremy Vine as an automatic right to sit in the Lords because he's one of the main leaders of the people of the country, regardless of what his producer's cooking up in the back room, right? Or, Zoe Ball or something. And these people they're preaching, cooking, they're preaching, going to B&Q, buying things, which is material things. How many friends have you got? How famous can we get you? Get on the TV, how many followers have you got? How popular are you? These are all the things that the religion says, don't do. Don't engross in. Don't do too much because it's bad. It's in excess. And the Americans have found that out through the food system now, which the advert and TV have been pushing everyone in the wrong way, and they've realised that it's making people very unhealthy. And this is when you need to get, people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in, and even Donald Trump, has realised this now. Hopefully he has, right? Rather than these loose women just going. This is what happens when you let these women go off. Maybe that was why they didn't have women as priests. But other religions did have women as priests, like, the Romans and, the Celts. And other religions have women as priests. But that particular religion for quite a long time didn't. They didn't just do it for nothing. There was a reason behind it. And now we've got these women rampaging around, they were blocking and banning people, don't do this, don't do that. No one can go into their own school anymore and sit at the school in the playground they grew up in because these mums, want fences around everywhere. And then, there's the immigrations and the crime's gone up. So the police are a complete and utter failure. They've not reduced crime at all. And even if they were reducing crime, someone's, turning the tap on and putting even more in for them to handle, right? Something needs to be done about it. And, now you got these MPs going about free speech when they are the ones who are breaking the law. You shouldn't have a political party. If all the MPs in Parliament are independent and someone does something very wrong, then they can be punished, right? But when the old party suffers, even when Corbyn, the Labour Party did suffer somewhat from Corbyn, but they quickly replaced him and blamed it all on him and got someone else in, right? Starmer is the exhibit of wrongness at the moment. Starmer has bodged up his career as a pro bono and as a lawyer. He didn't do the proper law for it. And the organisation that he joined has completely and utterly disregarded it for the last 40 years, even though people know it exists and have been using it, because some people know that it exists, right? But when it gets to, most of those cases don't go to court because, they just don't get there because some people see sense miraculously. But we're talking about proper official acknowledgement on paper or in a court. Not that it should even get to court. And this is the problem with all these protesters and campaign groups since the miners' strike, which it's not that long ago in history. Margaret Thatcher. It's history, but it's not. It's within people's lifetimes, right? I was sat watching Margaret Thatcher on TV. It's within the lifetime of a person, right? Well within it. So that means the mistakes have been done not too long ago. We're talking and towards the end of the 1980s, right? So, while I've been growing up as a teenager and a young man, right, this is when it's been going on, right? But I ain't needed to use political rights because most people don't. only 2/3 of people are turning up to vote, right? And then out of those, even less are that bothered about doing their own politics or petitions or even bothering to go see their MP. They just go vote for the party and then, let them deal with it, right? So it's people who, when you actually need to use these rights, when it's important, that's when you need them, right? So, and this is it. And when these people get to be leaders of parties, they don't want, independents coming along and spoiling their, thing. But this is the thing. When you call someone out when they've done something wrong, then, this is what they're trying to block, right? And this is not just me calling Starmer out. There are barristers now absolutely mortified with Starmer, and if it was a fair fight, Starmer would not. He would not last 10 seconds, not even 5 seconds, not even poof, not even that. The truth, Starmer cannot have the truth aired or even acknowledged. And it's not about ignoring it. I'm sorting the problems out. Starmer has been set up like many of us have been set up and stitched up. Starmer is on exhibition as the model of a corrupt man. And he's being stitched up. He's been put there. And this is like Khan. And he can pretend that he hasn't, but I put my money on it. David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Keir Starmer, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Who's knocking on the door? Keir Starmer is on exhibition. Watch this, everyone. Turn the TV on. Now you'll see some corruption. Now you'll see a Crown prosecutor sneaking, sliding, evading, getting out of questions, hiding the evidence, not putting the facts on the table. If there is anything now which will prove the defendant not guilty, will you put it on the table now, Starmer? Not next week, not in a month, not in 6 months, now. If there's anything which shows that Parliament can debate the seats of its members, whether it's one member or more, can you tell us now on television in a live debate with Jamie Stone in Parliament? And it's not about, we want to stop MPs lying. If they get it wrong, they get it wrong. But when they have got it wrong and we report them in, then they need to tell us the truth and put it right. And this is what the Welsh Assembly don't get. And what are the results of that? Yes, you're going to lose your seat and you're going to have to stand down because you were wrong. And that's the solution. Get another MP in. And this is what they said at the choke. How can we stop them from lying? You can't. And you shouldn't want to. Because what they're trying to do is trying to work something out so they can, how can we stop ourselves being corrupt? If you're corrupt, then you get prosecuted. This is the thing. They're trying to work something out so they can be right. They want to make it so they can be right all the time. And they can claim that they're right all the time. And it gets officially acknowledged that they're right all the time. But somehow, even if they're wrong, but this is the thing. They want to do what they want to do without being challenged and somehow prevent us from voicing. And this is the thing, we're privileged, right? But yet, the solution is, right, that, it's debatable. And at the moment, they're not letting us challenge them. Just be right. This is the thing. You don't have to be right, but be right. And if they're wrong, then admit. And, if they admit, they wouldn't have to stand down because they could apologise. But they don't even want to admit they're wrong and apologise because when they're wrong, it means they can't do the policies that they want to do. They can't put the laws through that they want to put through. And they can't do what they want to do because they're not really doing it for us. They're doing it for the party and they're doing it for themselves. And this is the problem with Starmer. The time of political parties and persons is over, because even the councillors are meant to have a selflessness policy. Why? These people, it's complicated free speech. They need to wrap their head around the complicatedness of, I've got to be selfless. So how can I vote on behalf of the Labour Party if I'm selfless? I can't, because there is no Labour Party, right? There is only my electors and what they think about any particular decision that has to be voted on, given the evidence when it's presented, right? This is the thing. They can't even work out that complication of that, the fact that you cannot have a political party in a local council or control of it. It can't exist. They want to try working that one out first. They need to, the thing is, they just need to shut up about all this freedom of speech. Tosh, opposition, tosh, all this, how can we stop this or that? The thing is, that the fact is that there's something they're trying to stop. Have you noticed every time, right? It's always about, this we've got to stop, or that we've got to stop, or the other we've got to stop. They need to stop themselves, right? Because I don't even think they want to debate. If there was only one thing that was right, okay, then he was there to debate. And then when it comes down to facts being right, then okay, well, what should we do with this about all that? Well, even when you get onto the subject, when every single thing that you say is what we call effectively as true as you can get, then there's still decisions to be made. Or what decision shall we make? What decision shall we make when, you could have any decision, what shall I have for breakfast? Well, you can only have something that's true for breakfast, can I have a true sausage? Or three true eggs. Well, is that debatable? Or then do they even want to make MPs say, well, you can only, have what's healthy, or whatever. This is the thing. It certainly is an anti-human party. And then these are the people who are wanting to scrap, male and female, or he, she, them, they, and wanted to make it so no one even knows what anything actually is, or anyone can be referred to whatever they want to. And these are people who are trying to vouch for truth. This generation has ended up in these establishments. It's the worst generation ever on this earth. These people who are coming forward to be MPs, we need a revolution in the type of people who are stepping forward, because they're not educated, they're not trained, they don't have any skills. They just remember a political party, stamp for the party, and then get elected. And when they get into Parliament, they're not learning anything. When this Harriet Harman's talking about, spiritual lords shouldn't have an automatic right to sit in Parliament, at least, this is one thing, at least the bishops actually know the religion. They know the religion, they actually, and the religion is all about the spirituality of beings and people. They actually know something about the profession. Harriet Harman's meant to be a lawyer, but she didn't even know the law of Parliament, she didn't even know the history and law of Parliament at all. Like Lord Hanningfield, he can't even represent his own rights. He's got to get someone else to do it. Who would be in the House of Lords if they don't even know the law of their own rights? This is it. It's dire. It's extremely dire. We've got TV presenters, morning TV presenters now have filled Parliament, and they're trying to take over the place. And then they even try, say, you don't even want to be able to debate something. This is it. It's really depressing. I'll be happy when, hopefully, Trump's going to shut this whole thing down. This whole ideology, while the Lib Dems are, panicking because, their whole globalist takeover is apparently being shattered or whatever. all this, the the actual people who don't want to debate something and who can't debate something, the people who are in Parliament now are the people who actually are the least likely to want to debate something, particularly against someone who's going to beat them and win, right? Because everyone in Labour Party has got to agree to the same things or they're out, like Corbyn or whatever. It's all conformist. You got to think like us, you got to walk like us, you got to talk like us, you got to have the attitudes. These are our standards, right? When Parliament is about all different people, all different walks of life, all different standards, with a fair debate of what the status quo should be, whether you're a gypsy traveller or, a punk or a barrister or a university professor or, whatever. It's meant to be the House of Commons. And Starmer's wanting to abolish the Lords and Harriet Harman's wanting to kick all the Lord Spiritual out. Starmer really wants the Commons. The Commons is the Lords because Starmer's party are the new Lords, the new commanders. They're higher than common people, but yet the people who are standing in their way are the House of Lords. When yet all the Tories, the Tories and Labour are the ones who filled the House of Lords up. It's a political party wanting to take over control of the country, right? And there are all these hereditary seats in the Lords, which I'm not particularly that fond of because, there are questions about the limitation of the Crown and upholding the rights and liberties of the subjects, and what are the interests of these hereditary people. But I think Starmer's worse. I think Starmer's worse than some of these hereditary people because what he's actually doing is he's actually trying to the public vote who's going to be into Parliament, right? The public elect the members. So the members of Parliament, regardless of what party they are, they're voting for the person. You can pretend they're voting for a party all you want, but they're voting for a person, and a lot of them don't know what person they're voting for because they vote for the party. But you vote for the person, right? And once those people are elected, they're meant to do business in government. But you're not meant to get involved with elections or electoral things in Parliament because if you affect elections, right, that's criminal. Influencing the public. So when Starmer's even thinking of saying, I'd like Labour Party to take over the House of Lords, that's criminal because he's wanting he's wanting to use government to get an advantage for his political party, which you're not going to do. You're going to have your MPs, you're going to put... he's give positions to different people in the cabinet and so forth. You're meant to do the work of Parliament, right? But yet Starmer is openly strategising to actually take over the government and change government. And also another thing, the House of Lords, right? In the ancient customs of England, particularly, the Commons have the privilege of debating their own affairs and business, right? And the Lords have the privilege of debating their own affairs and business, right? And what Starmer is actually trying to do with Labour is dictate and decide what the House of Lords should be like, who should be in it. And that's actually not the business of Parliament to debate from the point of when the House of Commons and Lords was created. So even though Harriet Harman's, going on about a stupid... plan to get rid of the Lord Spiritual or whatever, who are you going to have in there? If you've got an establishment called the church, right, you're calling the leaders of an organisation to come and speak parley. It's almost like Harriet Harman, right? What Harriet Harman's proposing is that if she went to war with France, right, and they went for parley, which is Parliament, right? With a white flag, no one will use weapons against each other or attack each other. Harriet Harman doesn't want to speak to Macron, right? What gives Macron the right to parley with Harriet Harman, KC? Oh, there's a competition here, a law competition. I'm Harriet Harman. Whip up a cake or two and a couple of buns. Whoop-de-fucking-do. I'm on TV, I'm famous. Filling the country with absolute tosh, absolute utter tosh, right? You don't go parley in France with a fucking tramp on a park bench. What gives Macron the right to come parley with me? Because he's the fucking leader of France. He's the fucking leader of France, Harriet. The leader. Who's the leader of the church? A fucking bishop, Harriet. You retard. A fucking bishop is the leader. Who are you going to call to parley? You know, he's stupid. Stupid woman who does not understand the fundamental principle of anything that she is doing. Yet she's managing to get into a court of law. Who gave her the King's Counsel qualification? Probably her friend, a knitting friend.